All right, guys, take two. Hey, everyone. Welcome to tonight's affirmation. I'm going to give you a few minutes to get into the room. When you get here, let me know you're here. I want to talk to you. I want to see how you guys are doing. We got some stuff to talk about tonight. Okay. Yes. We getting it. We got it now, Saints. Let me know when you're in the room. Yes. There we go. Okay. Hey, everyone. Do do do. More options. Hmm. I see. Ooh, that's not what I wanted, but I done did it now, Jesus. No. Hey, when you get here, let me know you're here. Like, let me know you're here. Bye. Not right now. Oh, here we go. Yeah, let me know you guys are here. I'm excited tonight. No, I don't want to do that. All right, it's fine. Hey guys. Uh yeah, I'm gonna give you guys probably like just a few more minutes. And then not even a few. I'm about to get started in like 2 seconds, but I see you're in a room. Say, hey, let me know how you're doing. Let me know what's going on. I would love to hear from you. I would love to hear what's going on. And tell me how your week has been. Um, has it been interesting? Has it been not for the week? Like, what is going on? How has your week been? Do. Let me see here. No. Okay. I think we are shared to the other group too. Okay. Now I know we're good. All right, cool. So while I wait for the Saints to come in, we're going to do some announcements and then we're going to get going. Okay, guys? So here are your announcements. If you're in our group, right, we have out our celebration form so that we can continue to recognize your birthdays and your like your accomplishments and everything. Please, if you want us to know, fill out the form. Let us know what's going on. Once you filled out your birthday once, you don't have to fill out your birthday again. But we definitely want to hear from you guys. So fill out the form. We also have our volunteer form out as well. So if you feel like the Lord is pushing in you or calling you to volunteer, this is the time to do it. This is the place to do it. So fill out the volunteer form. Somebody will get back with you. Um, and you're going to fill out the volunteer form if you like to serve or if you have a prayer request. And we also have a deliverance form as well, because once a month we're going to start having deliverance. So fill out that form if you're looking for breakthrough. So the other thing is our 2x2 is still going strong. Like, invite your people, invite two people. Two, I really want to say five, but I'm going to say two. Invite two people to come along and let them get this worthy work, guys. Okay? So that's two. And then, do you have an affirmation that has like knocked you, right? Or has living unfiltered impacted you for the better? We're inviting everybody to submit like a 30 to 60-second testimony, sharing your favorite affirmation and how it impacted you. And then, just in case you've been under a rock, right? Just in case, the unfiltered devotional, the official unfiltered devotional and workbook is available for pre-order, and you can get your copy at Queen G's link tree, which is all over the pages. So if you haven't seen that workbook, let me just tell you, the devotional itself is bomb. The workbook is healing. If you're trying to get this work in, get them both. All right. So those are our church announcements. That's it. Just a few church announcements for today. But I really want us to get into this affirmation. So y'all gonna see me looking over here. Hey, Rochelle. Y'all gonna see me looking over here. I promise you, I'm talking to y'all. I just got some notes that I need to get through. But as I stated before, the affirmation for this week is I am evidence of daily evolution, right? I am evidence of daily evolution. So, this affirmation came about while I was talking to my 10-year-old. My 10-year-old is homeschooled, right? So, we do a lot of talking about a lot of school stuff. In her learning her homeschool journey, we have been doing science projects about habitats and how a habitat can affect, how a habitat can move, how a habitat can be creative or cause problems or whatever. Hey, Jabrea. And so she had a question on one of her assignments that talked about what if, you have a producer, you have a composer, you have a decomposer. Or no, you have a producer, a consumer, and a decomposer. But what if one of these three main groups were not present anymore, right? And so she sat there and she thought about it, and she was like, I don't know, Mom. I was like, well, let's talk it through, right? And so I was simply explaining to her that all three are needed for the habitat to run. And if one isn't present, then the habitat would fall and it would be destroyed, or one of the other two groups would then come together to recreate the missing spot and to fill in that void, and the habitat would continue in the way that it should. Hey, PP. And so she said, Mom, that's real interesting because, and if you know Aiden, like y'all know how Aiden thinks. She's like, Mom, that's real interesting because unless you were there when the habitat collapsed, you would never know. I'm like, exactly, Aiden. You would never know that something so cataclysmic happened unless you were in the room when it happened, right? And so that's how we kind of got on this whole thought process for the affirmation for today. And so the one thing while I was sitting with this one, because it hit me, the one thing that the Lord made very clear about this affirmation is that this affirmation is here to do a bunch of things. It's here to enlighten, it's here to bring support, but the biggest thing that this affirmation does is causes a level of delineation between the Father we know and the real Father that we have. Hey, Candace, there has to be a delineation between the God of the Bible that we have been taught, the character of that God, the integrity of that God, and the actual nature of that God. Now, before y'all start looking at me weird, don't do it. I'm going to explain how we got here. So, for many of us growing up, we had this we had this understanding of a God or a strict God or a God who only allows certain things to happen or a God who allows things to happen to us that may be good and may be bad, but he when we do wrong, he's just going to punish, and he may not be able to love on us from a full manner. Now, I'm not talking about everybody, okay? I'm not talking about this for everybody, but if the shoe fits, it fits. So, when God was walking me through this affirmation, these were the things that came up for me at least. Just from my upbringing, my knowledge, and my understanding of what I have been taught, I had an understanding of God that was true, but not the full picture, right? And for some of us, we're dealing with a partial picture of a big God. So, when we talk about this affirmation, we need to understand that based off of our upbringing, based off of our family situation, based off of our life circumstance, there could be a disconnect between what we believe, see, and perceive God is versus who he really is. And so the plan in this affirmation was to delineate. And so I said, okay, God, like, what are the antonyms for delineate? And when I looked at the antonyms, it made sense because the antonyms for delineate are to blur, to confuse, to make foggy or make unclear. So I am evidence of daily evolution causes us to draw. Why did that fall? Causes us to draw a line that is clear about where we started, where we are, and where we are going because of our evolution and because who we are tied to. So let's get into it. Here we go. All right. So when we break down the first part, it's I am. And I can't TK does the best I am that I have ever seen. Okay. So we know that I am, we're talking about God, right? But in many ways, it's also a double entendre, and I'm gonna get back to that. But the I am that we talk about in the Bible, we see a lot of it or the beginning of it in Exodus when Moses is talking to God with the burning bush. And Moses says, hey, you're sending me to talk to Pharaoh, but who do I tell him sent me? Right. And in the Bible, it says, I tell them I am who I am sent you. So when we look at what that means, we are able to piece together the Greek word, which is Yale Asha Yale, which literally means that I am in the fullness. I am who has existed. I am who will be, right? But because it's I am, and Moses is telling them, like, I am, he doesn't give him that language because it's more of a name for God than a definition of God. And so when he actually goes, he gives him Yahweh sent me, right? And that's what we know, Yahweh. But when we look at the first word that he uses, right? The Yale Asher Yale. When we look at that word, it literally talks about the fact that God is, he was, he is the one who existed, he is the one who exists, and he is the one that will, right? I am who will. So when we look at I am evolution of I am evidence of daily evolution, it's not just talking about how, like, I am, right? It's not talking about me, just I am, but it's also talking about because I am connected to the one who has existed. I am connected to the one who is. I am connected to the one who will be. And because I stand in alignment with him, I am able, like, that is my covenant to be able to guarantee that I'm always going to evolve. I am always going to grow. I am always going to change. I am always going to have a step forward as long as I'm moving in that. So that is I am for this. When you look up the word evidence, it's the available body of facts or information indicating whether a belief is true or valid. That speaks for itself. And then when we look up the word evolution, two definitions come up. It's the process by which different kinds of living organisms are thought to have developed and diversified from earlier forms, and the gradual development of something, especially from a simple form to complex form. So when we look at the affirmation together, it literally is I am, because I am aligned with the I am, everything about my life, because I have aligned with him, will always exude the fact that I went from a simple form or I came from a child and now I am multiplying or I am growing or I am compounding into this new, more complex form and more complex being, right? I am evidence of daily evolution. So how does that translate for us? So it translates very simply. We think about where we came from, right? We think about our life in the beginning as our habitat, as our garden. We think about how we have had circumstances that have came to us. We have had trials and situations that have come to affect us. We have had people that have come to play with us or to come to support us. And when we think about how all of this stuff has come together, it's the fact or it's the fact and understanding that how we used to do things, we no longer do them. And it sounds simple, but when you think about the profoundness of the God that we serve and how for many of us, we used to run our mouths, talk a lot of junk, do a lot of nonsense. And maybe not just you, but I know it was Allison. So, anyways, we went from being that creature, and the Lord was able to take us, work us, mold us, use the situations that came at us, whether it was for our good, whether it was something that was meant to be a consequence, whether it was something that came as an attack. The Lord took all of that stuff and he said that because I am who I am now able to show you that when I touch these things, even though they were what they were, you can't stay the same because you're mine, right? Yeah, PP. Like my mouth too. It's my mouth too, PP. Like it's okay as long as I'm not by myself. But anyways, so that is what it looks like on paper. And so when we think about like the habitats that we know of and how habitats coincide with evolution in itself, we know that habitats are created to house. Yep, oh, don't do that notes. Don't you love it when your notes decide to do something different real quick? Okay, anyways. Habitats, hey Jazz. Habitats are created to house certain species of live animals, plants, and grass. Most things from the outside have to be introduced and studied to ensure that they will thrive, right? So when we think about that and we think about how our lives or our evolution is our habitat, everything that has happened to us, everything that we have experienced, everything that has come from us or come to us is now created a habitat or a space for us. We have a couple of different options when it comes to our habitat, which is we can maintain the habitat, we can shake the habitat, or we can let the habitat die, right? Those are our only three options. If we choose to maintain the habitat, that means that there is no introduction of new things. There is no introduction of any new creatures, new thoughts, new ideas. It is just a habitat where we end up being stagnant. We fit. It is the habitat that we fit in. And that is all it will ever be, the habitat that you fit. When we choose to cause chaos, right? We are choosing to introduce something new into the habitat, and then we study it to see if it actually works. We study it to see if it's actually going to be able to find a space in the habitat that it's in. Let me give you a great example, right? So, for me, it looked like the Lord was telling me to do certain things and I did not understand it. He would tell me to shut my mouth and just not say anything after a minute. It would be very simple. I'd be like, "Bop, bop, 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 bop," and then I would hear shut up and I'd be like, okay, well, that's all I got for you guys. Like, that's it. And I never understood what the Lord was doing in that process. But in Him telling me to stop talking, it confused me, right? But in that moment of confusion, that moment of like, God, why are you doing this? Like, what's going on? Like, why can't I just say what I'm hearing? the Lord began to show me that while I was speaking a lot of great wisdom, that I was casting this wisdom to people who just could not understand it, right? It was me throwing a ball that they could have caught, but because they just did not have the clarity yet, or the spiritual maturity yet, they were missing this ball that I was catching. And because they were missing the ball, it was causing offense to set in. Hey, Sabrina, it was causing offense to set in with them. And it wasn't like I did anything wrong. It wasn't like I wasn't speaking the truth. It just wasn't the season for it. It just wasn't the time for it. And so there are times where we will do things that will disrupt our own habitat. And the Lord then has to kind of rein it back in for us, right? But then there are those times when the Lord is like, no, I need my child to go deeper. No, I need my daughter to have a new understanding. And He will allow something to enter into a habitat as an invitation and a calling to us, right? And so, whether that is him allowing something to occur, and in that occurrence, it makes you get on your knees and pray, or whether it's there's a situation that comes and you know you can't handle it, and the Lord has stripped every ounce of control from you, and you have no choice but to submit to endure. The invitation is sent for you to answer. If you choose to not answer, you choose to not allow new things into your habitat, you choose to stay stagnant. And because the covenant that the Lord has made with us, that we will have daily evolution, it ends up being worrisome, not for us. It ends up, well, not worrisome, it ends up being concerning to the Lord, because He has sent an invitation to His daughters, or He has sent His invitation to His sons, because I know the sons be watching, but He sent this invitation out for His people to respond to. And instead of trusting Him in the unknown and responding accordingly, they respond with fear, or they respond with disobedience, or a lack of understanding. And the Bible is very clear on all of those. The opposite of fear isn't necessarily faith, but the opposite of fear is love, right? Because the Bible tells us that perfect love casts out all fear. So when we are being fearful, it doesn't mean that we don't trust the Lord. It means that the knowledge that we have of His love for us needs to be rewired for us to truly understand what He is trying to do with us. If the Lord has told us, right, and He's beat us over the head with it at this point, like, I'm never going to leave you or forsake you. I'm never going to leave you hanging. I am always going to make sure you're good. Like, He wrote Psalms. He had prophets write Psalms for us. He had prophets write Proverbs and a whole Bible for us to understand just how much He loves us, right? And so if the Lord done told us, like, I go before you, that means that everything ahead of me, whether I can see it or not, whether I can understand it or not, is already taken care of. And my answer to the question that I have now probably lies in that level of the unknowing, right? But because I am leaning to my own understanding, instead of stirring up my gifts and leaning on His understanding, right? Or leaning on the knowledge and the faith and what I know of the Lord, I'm kind of stuck. And so it's up to us to accept the beckoning of the Lord. It's up to us to accept it when He calls us out the boat, right? And to step out on faith, knowing that even if I fall, I serve a God that's going to pick me up, right? Because it's the understanding of having that. He'll use everything. He'll use anything and everything. Two, it's always going to work out for my good. The cards are always stacked in my favor, right? The understanding and knowledge that I need, I already have because he equipped me for this season before the season. And I just need to walk into it prepared and in having the trust and the knowledge to back it up with the word, right? So that's one thing. The new things that come to us are there to shock the system, to offer up the invitation to us from the divine to get closer so that when we wake up in the morning, we see the changes of our evolution. We can go to bed that night and see how we're different from the morning. But if we're not answering the call and we're not using the tools, then we're stuck in a place where the Lord is just like, take my hand, like you can't see it, but just take my hand. Like my hand is always going to be there. Like my hand is never going to leave you. Just reach out and take the hand. And because we can't see it, we can't touch it, we can't fabricate it, we miss it sometimes. And so it's the delineation, it's the line in the sand that how we see God can be sometimes debunked by the word of God based off of what he has said about us, what he has created for us, and how he has a desire for us to live in this world. He didn't call us, well, this was not, he didn't call us to poverty. He did not call us to that mindset, but that attack will come. But the word also says that no weapon formed against us shall prosper. So we know what to do with it. And I think sometimes we get so distracted and so lost in what we see that we forget that our spiritual eyes always have an honest perception of what is and what will happen for when the Lord shows us those things. So that's one. So, um evolution in itself can refresh or restrain, okay? Evolution can refresh or restrain. It's up to us to make the choice of what it's going to do. I know that once again, for me, my biggest thing was trying to understand what the Lord was doing in the season. And oh, that was funny. I'm sorry, y'all. It's funny over here. But um me trying to understand the next step, right? And what the Lord was doing for me was beckoning me to just trust that the next step is already funded by Him. It's already, and when I say funded, I don't necessarily mean monetarily funded, right? I mean, in every aspect of every need that I have, the Lord has taken that next step, and funded it. All I had to do was step out, not try to assume responsibility, not try to save myself, not try to control a situation, and not try to have any hand in it at all, right? No hand in it at all. The Lord was going to fund it. I just had to move it. That's it. And I struggled with this concept for a very long time. And one day I was sitting here talking to the Lord, and I was just like, literally, PP, what in the heavens is going on? Like, can we talk about it, Jesus? Like, what did I miss? What didn't I hear? What didn't I understand? And the Lord took me to this scripture, right? And the scripture literally talked about unleavened bread, and how unleavened bread with leavened bread, if even if it's a little bit, it'll spoil it. So to remove it so that you could be filled, right? And he brought me to an understanding of old wine and new wineskins. And even though, right, I had the faith to back what the Lord was asking me to do, I was not tapping into it because I was refusing to move differently in a different season. And I wanted to see something familiar because we seem to be we get comfortable with familiarity, right? And the Lord was not calling me to familiarity. He literally was calling me to the most uncomfortable space. And like every season, I feel like I have this one super uncomfortable space. But that uncomfortable space from last season prepared me for this season. And so when the Lord finally was like, slap, slap, Allison, just take the step, I'm like, oh, it's uncomfortable, but I'm used to it. Right? It's uncomfortable, but this is not nothing new. The level of uncomfortability may be different because it's different, it's a different season, but being uncomfortable in itself has become a part of my evolution. And so the Lord ended up showing me in this process that in order to get from where you are, right, you have to move. Even if it's just like if I wanted to get up from this seat and move around in this room, I would have to physically get up and go forward. If I wanted to go in the living room and grab something, I would have to physically get up, go open the door, and go in the living room, right? But I would have to make a choice to get up and do that. And so for many in this season, the Lord is telling me, yeah, He's telling me. Um, the issue that you're seeing is that you expect your habitat or your evolution to always look familiar to you. And you expect yourself to always look familiar to you. But when the Lord is calling you to different and He's calling you to new, you may not recognize yourself for a little bit. You may not be able to recognize what you see in front of you. You may not recognize the new person or the new gifts or the new abilities because it's not nothing you've seen before. And for the Lord to truly blow our minds, he has to enact new things for us that we could not even dream about, that we could not even imagine. In order for one thing, in order for Amos 8 to happen, for us to be overwhelmed, it has to strike us with such a force that it is something new and it's something so uncomfortable for us. Like we think, oh, it's going to be great. And it is, but it's going to be new. It's going to be a new understanding, a new thought process. He could take something old and make it new, but it's going to be something that you have not seen before. And that is why, for many of us, we feel that overwhelmed when the blessings come because it's stuff that we could not even imagine. But it's also because we took the time to be evolved, right? It's because even in getting the blessing and receiving the blessing, the evolution was still occurring for us to be able to be stretched to receive what's new, have knowledge of what is new, but also stretch to be comfortable with the new. Okay, and then evolution is a sequence of changes, not always readily seen or available. And so when I said, Lord, like, what that mean? Like, what does that mean? And he simply said that other folks may not see the change. You may not see the change, but it does not mean that change is not occurring. Change is not always a tangible thing. Evolution is not always a tangible thing. Evolution will be what it needs to be for you in that season. And many of us beat ourselves up because we don't see the change. We don't see the evolution, or we don't understand why certain things come and how that causes us to evolve. But the Lord wants you to give yourself grace in that because sometimes you won't be able to see anything until you look back, right? You look back over your life. That's why the folks be saying when I look back and I think things over. Because it's not until you stop and you look back, right? It's not until you see the baby steps or the real small steps, right? That you are able to then see where you have come from, right? kind of makes me think about how, to some scientists believe that a T-Rex evolved into a chicken. Yes! Like, thank you. Thank you. Yes, Jasmine. I didn't know that, Jasmine. Jasmine, you're so smart. Okay, I'm gonna come back. I'm sorry, y'all. I'm not sorry, but anyways. But it's when we are able to look back that we are able to see how we have fundamentally changed at times. And that's why it's so important that we give ourselves grace in every season. It's important that we give ourselves time to reminisce. It's important because sometimes the change is huge, right? You didn't hit them and you would have last year. That's great. But sometimes it's also in the small area of I didn't I didn't beat myself up this time when I felt like I missed the Lord. I took a breath, I prayed about it, I talked to the Lord about it, and I got back on track. Both are huge changes. One is just more visible to the eye than the other. And one is more visible to the world, where the other one is more visible to you, right? So when we're talking about how the Lord continues to evolve us, it is on a path that works for you, but it's on a path that works with the function, the alignment, and the process of the Lord, right? It's not about what other people are doing, it's not about how it happened for somebody else. The Lord tells us to tell our testimony to encourage others, not so that we can take those testimonies and construe them and think that's how it's going to happen for me. It's not about us taking those testimonies and coveting the testimony because we think, oh, because it happened for them and this is what's going on in their life, that's what it's going to look like for me. The Lord gave us testimonies as a form of encouragement, right? Because if I ain't been through it, how can I help you through it? Right? So it's us being graceful with ourselves in our season because where we are, let me be very clear, where we currently stand is where the Lord wants us. Where we currently are and doing what we are doing is what the Lord has for us. If we are believers and we stand in alignment, right? If we are believers and we are in his word and we are in alignment with him and we are listening for his voice and we're discerning the season, baby, you doing everything that you need to do. Let the Lord do his part. The Lord will literally put us in situations where we can't do nothing but what we can do just so that the testimony can be it was God. And so when you're sitting around here trying to make things shake and the Lord didn't tell you to do that, then you're operating out of the mindset that you don't trust the I am that is the I am. And you don't trust him to be who was, who is, and who is to come. And you don't trust him and you have a hard time trusting that fact that he's never going to leave you or forsake you. And so when you're working out of that posture of your heart, you are going to find yourself trying to control things, trying to overdo things, trying to manipulate things, trying to make things shake, um trying to do a little something, and you'll find yourself doing these things. And the issue is not what you're doing, it's the function of how you're doing it. And it's the habitat that you're creating for yourself, and it's the evolution that you're stunting for yourself. Because God gave us dominion, but he also continues to give us provision. And like we can go down the books of the Bible where it talks about countlessly about how like things have happened and it had to be the Lord. Things happen and it had to be his will. Or things happen just to show his glory. And those things happen in the Bible. They are definitely going to happen now. It may not look like that. It can look like that. But the whole function of our lives is to edify and bring glory to the Lord. And if we are to edify, if literally our life is to edify and bring glory to the Lord, then that means that circumstances are going to come so that the Lord can get the glory out of it. So that so that literally the testimony can be, I don't know how it happened. I don't know what I was doing. All I had was two chicken bones to my name. And next thing you know, the Lord came in and he did XYZ 1, 2, 3. But if we try to do it ourselves, we take that testimony and it's tainted. And we're doing it for ourselves instead of letting it be done through us to edify. So at this point, we have to allow those situations where God wants to be God, we have to submit to them. We have to submit to when the Lord wants his glory to be shown. Sometimes it'll be real beautiful, guys. I'm not going to hold you. There are beautiful if you was here last week and you heard TK's testimony, beautiful testimony of the glory of God, right? There are times when the glory will be so beautiful and it's going to edify. It's always going to edify. It's always going to be true. It's always going to be timeless. And then there are going to be times when the glory come through and it picks you up from the ground and it elevates you up, right? But the only way that that can happen is when we allow the shift to happen with the evolution of how we see him, right? If we still see him as just the God who just likes to punish, but not the loving God who will also recoup us in seasons, restore the time, turn back the clock, give us what we need, and then some. Fill us with his love and his power and his authority, and then some. If we don't understand him in that nature, then we're missing the true character of God and we're missing his goodness in the mix. And so our evolution may be quick, it may be small, it may be big, it may be short, but our evolution is still just that, our evolution. And day by day we change. It is up to us how that change affects. And it's up to us if the change is allowed to even occur. Because as much as the Lord wants to take us to next level and he wants to take us to next wonder and he wants to take us to glory and he wants us to leap, he can only do that when we choose to partner with him and submit to what he wants to do. And so in this season, like give yourself grace. Big and small, left and right. It just needs to, it literally just needs to look like you. That's it. Your evolution just needs to look like you. It don't need to look like anybody else's. It just needs to look like you. And so, if you're having identity problems, I'm going to tell you to take them to the Lord, but take them to the Lord so that you know what you is supposed to look like. And so you're not trying to implement systems that don't work for you because they're not made for you. Because we are not all made alike. We are not all made with the same mind. We are not all made with the same heart. We are not all made with the same processes. But the Lord did make us with systems, right? Whatever your system look like is your system. But he did make us with systems and processes in place to be able to handle how he made us. Because he made us specifically for our assignment. So there is nothing wrong with how he made you. There is nothing off about how he made you. He did not mess up. Don't disrespect the Lord and say he messed up. Don't do that. Don't do that. There is nothing off about how he made you. He made you perfectly for who you are, for who you're called to, for the assignment that you'll have in the earth, and for the people that you're meant to partner with. So being you and knowing your identity and being set in it is the most important part of your evolution. Because how can you evolve into you if you're not even allowing yourself to do that? You have a grace for you. You have a grace for who you are. You have a grace for where you're going. And you are beyond equipped, right? For the things that you need to do. But you're only equipped for what you need to do. So as you continue to evolve, as you continue to have these moments and these seasons where God is just saying, like, it's got to be me. Like, you got to let me do it. I I I dare you to lean in. I dare you to lean in to what it looks like and lean into those areas where you question the character of God based off of your perception or what you're seeing. Because when I say that we serve a great God, we serve a really, really, really good God. A really, really good God who will allow us to make a choice to not follow him. Don't do that though. But he allows us to make these choices. What God do you know is going to allow you to make a choice whether you choose to follow or not follow him? And still make sure that you're good. And when you follow him, baby, takes you to places like things that you've never seen before. But when you don't, he doesn't take away your gifts. Like, what kind of God? We serve such an awesome God. And so it is imperative and important that in these seasons that are to come, that we have a true understanding of who he is and his integrity and his function for us and his identity and who he is, right? We should understand the attributes of God in the fullness of honesty and truth, not what we've been taught, which may be construed by what people have seen, right? But it's up to us. It's up to us to accept the invitation to evolve. It's up to us to accept the invitation to go higher. It's up to us to submit to the cataclysmic chaos that comes when we decide to allow God to do something different and enact change in our lives and in our habitats. So the choice is yours. But don't just choose Jesus, y'all. It's all right. Just choose the Lord. Um, but yeah, that's all I had for tonight. I thank y'all for coming on. And if you didn't catch the announcements, they're at the beginning of the video. So make sure you catch them. And until next time, take care and get some sleep because it's late. It's a little late, y'all. All right. Bye.